Another day, another fairly one-sided win in the ODI World Cup. We just saw South Africa getting the second win, beating Australia. And yeah, today is looking really good in the tournament. Welcome to the shiny side. I'm your host, Fareez Shah. And today we have with us Batool Mehdi as a guest. Batool is a published author. She's the founder of FYI Digital. And she's somebody who I think very often when I meet, we end up having some cricket conversation around. So I think it's a pleasure to have her be hosting on the podcast. How are you doing, Batool?
Thank you so much, Fareez. Bilkul, it's amazing to be here. And tumhari aur meri waqai mein conversation often stays to cricket. So
Yes,
this is like a very natural progression.
Absolutely. And so the World Cup is what? I think we're about 10 days in. How do you feel about it so far? What's your take on it so far?
You know, abhi main aur tum start karne se pehle ye baat kar rahe the that, you know, for our generation, children of the 90s, the World Cup is unreal. 50 overs. Because look at where we started our journey for the World Cup. You know, 92 would be the first real, you know, thing that we remember. We won. Amazing. Followed it, har cheez, you know, and you start with this expectation. और फिर वो जो trauma की level आती है ups and downs or waves में. I mean, 96 के मुझे quarter final के हर moment याद है of the exhilaration right down to the dread to when you know your dreams are shattering, you know. And then, of course, 99, possibly, I think, Fareez, our best World Cup squad, arguably.
And
you know,
also,
in many ways.
I would say that final was the day my confidence as a Pakistani fan got shattered. Now I'm only 90% sure, 100% we will win it, right? But
you know, Fareez, I was in London when the 99 World Cup happened. I didn't watch the match in the stadium, but I remember we were very close to Lord's, and you could literally see, you know, your dreams going away with the Aussie supporters, you know, and I mean, wo jo disastrous World Cups the, we remember those as well. So it's been such a journey, I think, with honestly, as a, you know, journalist as well, I think this World Cup coming at the time it has come, it's almost like with everything that's going around in the world, this is such a cathartic, cleansing thing to kind of come back
and because of what I'm doing, I'm really into it at the moment. So I have to cut off a lot of things out just to be able to do this. But
and as that's perfectly normal, I do the same. You know, at the end of the day, you have to let your mind release somewhere. And I think the World Cup is a great platform.
I mean, I think before we get into today's game, just one last thing, right? On that day in 92 when you won the World Cup and I was out playing cricket that evening, all pumped up. Had you told me we would not be winning another one for 31 years, I would have said, go to hell.
Right?
Exactly. But it's 30 plus years now and we haven't won another one. And you know what? This T20 is the way to go, and T20 World Cup, etc., etc. Lekin this is the one that matters. This is the one that's legacy defining, and that hasn't changed.
Absolutely.
So look, good stuff. So just to kick things off, we have this thing where we do a summary of the game in 33 seconds and I actually time it. So I'm going to do the summary quickly. And I'm going to put the timer on. So Australia won the toss. Nobody was quite sure what to do because this was a brand new pitch. They put South Africa in. South Africa had a 108-run opening stand in 20 odd overs. De Kock got a second 100. And they were, I think, at 197 for 2 with 15 overs to go, looking like they would get 350, but they kind of ended up with 311, which seemed like a decent score. Australia were never into it. They were 70 for 6, basically. And then there was just the final rights. One of those where they were basically optimizing for run rate, and they finished up with a 134-run win. And I did that in 32 seconds. I'm getting better at this. But starting at the top,
very technical.
So because this is the way of giving the summary to our listeners, right? Straight up.
Absolutely.
So starting at the toss, right? So Australia made a couple of changes. They've got Stoinis in, that was expected, but then they also dropped Alex Carey, which we spoke about on the podcast yesterday. And because Carey apparently, again, he's been struggling with the bat. And
the bat, exactly. So I think
unfortunately, Inglis, who came in, he didn't do much though. He wasn't able to.
And I mean, Stoinis ka koi acha din to nahi guzrana. I mean, in any kind of way at all. And but I think, you know, the game for me definitely felt like this. I guess, I don't know, Fareez, I've been noticing the sense of energy about South Africa in this World Cup. And I've actually been noticing a sense of inertia or fatigue with Australia. It's almost like, I was thinking today of the best way to put it. Ke Australia ka aisa lag raha hai jaise like, ek aur World Cup jeete. Like that is how it feels. Whereas with South Africa, I just feel like they want to win. This is probably the most self-assured World Cup team I've seen of South Africa's in a while. So, you know, I think,
I mean, to be honest, South Africa usually in our life has had really good squads and teams coming in.
Yes.
I would say the last time was an exception. But up to 2015, they've been good, and they obviously falter at the knockout stage, but otherwise they almost always make it, right? So they're looking really good.
बिल्कुल, लेकिन body language और tone में भी बड़ा पता चलता है टीम का, you know, and Australia कहीं ना कहीं एक वो जो World Cup fatigue, हालांकि 2 games हुए हैं, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि legacy of World Cup, which you spoke so
they've also been
well
coming
of,
off a very big summer. They had 5 test matches in the Ashes in 6 weeks, and it's unlike some other teams, they have a lot of players overlapping in the test format and the ODI format. So it's actually a bunch of the same guys. And a lot of them were injured, they're just coming back, etc. But whatever it is, you're right. The body language, I think when the game started at the beginning, it looked like Australia weren't challenging South Africa as much. They weren't off the boil. They dropped, last I counted, they dropped 6 catches. So I'm not sure how many, right? But it was,
6. It's unreal.
It was crazy. So it's very unlike them. And
very much so.
Very unlike them. And so I think when South Africa got off to that start, it was one of those innings where it looked like South Africa, if you were just watching, you would think South Africa would probably have scored more because they never looked troubled. But I feel like they maybe left a few out there. But I think it was also because South Africa, they have a brilliant top 6 with the bat, but they don't bat as deep.
They don't.
So what happened is once they lost those wickets, then in the end, they couldn't really hit out as much.
That's exactly what I think as well. And I think वही बात आ जाती है that, you know, who showed up and who didn't, you know, more people showed up with South Africa and Australia. It only really seemed at one point that end में Cummins जिस तरह से bat कर रहा था, you know, लग रहा था कि अगर इसी तरह से किया होता तो कुछ game तो बनता, you know, but like it just wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I guess Australia, I thought bowled well towards the end because in the last 15 overs, they only gave 110 runs or so, got some wickets. Yeah. But again, once they batted, right? So I thought they were just in it, but once they batted, it was just not going to happen. And again, I think Janssen and Ngidi got a wicket first up, but then when Rabada came in, he got Smith. And there were a couple of controversial decisions in there. So Smith was given out on DRS. And it didn't look LBW at all to the naked eye, but it was apparently hitting stumps.
And even the catch where they reviewed
that I actually have more issue with the third umpire because I think in the first one, the third umpire didn't have a choice. It said hitting, so he has to give it out, right? But in the second one, it was a lot about his interpretation. And just half the ball lagi thi, that wasn't on the bat. It didn't seem like it. So this is the rule which we've known since being kids, कि अगर हाथ पे ball लगती है, अगर वो हाथ bat पे ना हो तो out नहीं होता है. So I'm not sure why this was different. And Australians were unhappy about it, and they were protesting the umpire. Having said that, by then.
Exactly. कि किस moment पे वो आया, could it really have made such a huge difference?
I'm pretty sure, like, I think by the time Stoinis wicket happened, the result would not have been the same. There would have not been different, I mean. Smith Wala was still a bit earlier, but that was probably too late.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. For sure.
And so I guess it's another big win. I think another thing we're seeing in the World Cup is a lot of games are being decided 20, 30 years before the game ends, 20, 30 overs before the game ends.
Yeah.
Which is problematic because then you're just kind of watching, not sure why. And the games are petering out. I think yes, R against Sri Lanka was the only one that I would say was different, right?
Yeah. But I think that's the tone. And I think maybe the pitches have something to do with that. Maybe it is just the tone one team sets.
I think it's also
that's definitely where we're going.
I think what's happening with ODI cricket now is on these flat tracks when teams come in and go really hard and get a big score, the team batting second has to go hard. So they can very easily finish it like 100 for 6, and from there they only try to save their NRR. So I guess that's how.
And over the years, T20 mentality bhi itni aa chuki hai ODIs mein bhi, you know, they have the target oriented. Whereas hamari dekho isse pehle what was the highest chase? I think it was in the 99 World Cup. I think
92 World Cup, believe it or not.
92, dude. Oh my God, I think it was something like 270 or 250 or something.
262.
Well, okay, fine. So you know, like, but it was nowhere near the ballpark of what it is now because ab hum itne league cricket ki wajah se target oriented ho gaye that, you know, it
and
works.
You're right,
for
T20s, normally, you know, it would be a whole 250 is a good score, 300 is a brilliant score. Now they think in those 20 over blocks, and now they are looking at much bigger targets. So if a team gets much bigger target, then
Exactly. मैं उस दिन यही सोच रही थी amazement World Cup की हम जर्नी की बात कर रहे थे when we started watching World Cups. I mean, a 270 was like, ooh, you know, like you scored big. और अब देखो कि 350 भी कभी-कभी doesn't.
So in the end, you mentioned 92, right? In the final, we scored 249, which seemed like a very good score. Now it's a super underpass score. So yeah.
अब तो कोई सोचेगा भी नहीं. I was telling my nephew, and he was like, "What? That's a nothing score." And I was like, "It was a big score at that time."
Things have changed a little bit.
Exactly.
But yeah, I guess before we move on, I'll quickly pull out to see where these two teams go from here, because they obviously are sitting in very different positions. So if you look at Australia, they now have 2 losses out of 2. Their next game is with Sri Lanka, and then they play Pakistan. So now Australia has lost 2. They need to win 6 of the remaining 7 games to qualify.
Bilkul, absolutely.
And the NRR is horrible. So even if they lost 2, they probably will not be able to qualify. So every game is critical. I think the game, I mean, they play Sri Lanka 100%. In 3-4 days, which hopefully for their sake they will win. But then I think the Pakistan-Australia game becomes pretty big. Because it will be a pressure game for Australia. So they will probably give it.
I don't think they have a choice. I think for them, वही बात आ जाती है, it's what's up here. I think for them, if they want it here, the hunger is there enough. You know, anything can happen. लेकिन मुश्किल लग रहा है. They're not in my top 4. My picks for
to be honest, they were there initially, but it looks really hard for them right now, right? Because of losing a game to 2 of the big teams. So I mean, I guess the only thing in their defense is they played 2 of the stronger teams in India and South Africa. So I guess that's a bit in their favor, but
बिल्कुल. I mean, होने को तो कुछ भी हो सकता है, but ये format बहुत unforgiving है, you know. So you have to kind of really keep it stepped up, you know. So
before we move on to tomorrow's game, Batool, let's have a quick comment from you on what you've seen of Pakistan so far, and how do you see how do you feel they've been playing?
I don't know. I'm that Dilulu person who always backs the team, you know, no matter what. Even in the darkest of days, I've done that. But this is all jokes or all sentiment aside. This is a team that is quite possibly the sort के जिसको हम back करते हुए शर्म ना आए और ये कहते हुए ना शर्म आए कि हाँ ये कर सकते हैं. You know, like I do think intent has something to do with that. I think it's also that there are no big egos. We've grown up watching players with bigger egos and bigger talent often, or to match it. And ये वो team है जहाँ पे everybody seems to come together. And I know I'm sounding sentimental more than perhaps technical, but I think a lot of it has to do with attitude and approach. And this team seems to have that, you know, that even if 2 people, पहले यही तो होता था, एक person ही काम करता था तो पूरी की पूरी team collapse हो जाती थी. That's not happening anymore. So at least that is something that's hard.
I think this might be the first team in our lifetime, post 92 for sure, where there aren't those major groupings where everybody's out to get each other, right?
Exactly.
So which is fantastic, right? And it shows in how they play on the field.
Totally shows. Yeah.
So I get what you mean. I think I feel like
they're in my top 4.
I can get pretty analytical when it comes to cricket, but I have a really hard time analyzing Pakistan's chances. I can't do that without putting my element of bias into it ever. So for me, it's always about how do we make it rather than will we make it or not. It's okay. What do we need to do to get there?
As it should be. Why not?
Good stuff. So I'm quickly gonna, I guess, we'll look at tomorrow's game briefly.
Yeah, I mean, कहने को तो कहा जाए कि it's a no-brainer. But you know, things can happen. I just feel like again, New Zealand is another team that I just feel like they've got this obviously trauma from the 2019 one, and they really kind of want to make that go away. So you can see it, you know, in the way they're playing. And I just think tomorrow, you know, obviously.
I guess the only thing is this game against Bangladesh is at Chennai. So if I was Bangladesh and I had to pick one ground in India to play New Zealand, it would be Chennai because it's the most sprint-friendly track. So
and also,
I would say ordinarily,
Bangladesh's spinners can be the difference. If there is a difference, I was even noting it down earlier. It could probably be their spinners, you know. So and the Chennai track is so favorable to that.
So I think ordinarily this would be a pretty, I would say, straightforward thing, but it could be slightly tricky. So I would keep an eye on it.
And I hope it is because you know, drama पर कहाँ से आएगा या interest कहाँ से आएगा World Cup में अगर हर game ही given होगा अगर पहले से ही हम देखें.
I think we need that close game coming up.
Absolutely.
To get some jeopardy in the World Cup.
Absolutely.
I'm quickly going to put up the expected 11. So my sense is New Zealand will not make any changes for tomorrow. Kane Williamson is getting fit, but they don't need to play him in this game, and they've won 2 matches, so I think they can take it.
Actually, I was going to ask you, so he was supposed to return for tomorrow,
well,
but
he's been practicing. They haven't said if he's available, but he's been practicing. So my sense is he's probably not far now, but chances are that they will probably chances are they probably will not risk him for this game.
How do you see Ravindra's role tomorrow, by the way? That's something
I think he's probably somebody who can really take on the spinners, right? So he can take on the spinners.
इसीलिए तो कह रही हूँ because spinners को वो कर सकता है. He can be the kind of guy.
I think honestly speaking, I think they will probably. I mean, it depends a lot on if the pitch is like Australia versus India, then it might be a bit complicated, a bit hard for them to get away. So they'll have to probably assess what's a good score and all that stuff. So
absolutely. See. And on the day, ho sakta hai, to be honest, once you actually start, I think it's so easy for us to sit back here and say, ki, ye target sahi hai, lekin khelte mein pata chalta hai that I think this is it, we're set, we can do
because
this.
I feel like in the Australia-India game, Australia made 205, but it felt like even if they made 250, that for that day would have been a good score.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't have that.
Well, preemptively, kabhi mushkil hota hai.
So, Batool, it's your first time on the show, so we have this segment on the show, which is the quiz.
Oh,
and
okay.
And you'll have to, the question will pop up on your screen in a minute.
Great.
It's
as long as there's a prize.
Yeah, no, it's a long minute. Well, we'll decide on the prize based on whether you win or not.
I probably won't. I don't have a very good track record, but go for it.
So I'm going to start reading the question out to you because it's taking its time to pop up on the screen.
Sure.
But
go for it.
The question is, you have to list 5. I've put 5 things up there, and you have to list them in descending order.
Okay, right? Descending. Got it.
So there's highest first. There's the population of Johannesburg. There's David Warner's Insta followers. There's Faf du Plessis' Insta followers.
Oh, I like him.
There's Steve Smith's Insta followers, and then there's population of Melbourne.
Oh, I got it. Aa gaya.
Yes.
Acha. ठीक है.
You have to list the following in descending order.
ठीक है. So सबसे highest well, geography fail को कह रहे हो कि population के बारे में बात. History में major है, लेकिन geography was never it. Okay, I'm just going to go for it. It's one of the populations is the most.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we go for Joburg?
Okay, let's start with Joburg.
Okay. Then
you can just say a 5 and then we'll see if it's right or wrong.
So Joburg, the next population, whatever the city it was.
That was Melbourne.
And then Warner, Smith, Warner, and du Plessis. I'm probably got it completely wrong, but go on.
1 second. I am going to get this.
Hit me with it. Tell me where I went wrong.
It's coming. It's coming. And the answer is. Sorry, this. I think the
technology fails us all.
It's acting up to build the suspense for the viewers. But so
it's all good.
it's actually. Hang on.
I'm curious to know how far off I was.
I'll just tell you. So I'm going to read out the answer to you. So the answer is Warner's Instagram followers are the highest.
Wow.
10 million.
My God.
Yeah. He puts a lot of work in making these Bollywood dance videos with his family. So he's a smart man. He knows where the followers are.
Absolutely.
Then it's population of Joburg, which is 6 million. Population of Sydney is 5 million.
Right.
Then there's Faf du Plessis with 4.3 million.
You just blew my mind.
Yeah, and Faf is also a really big IPL star. So that's where that's where the numbers come from.
Of course.
And then Steve Smith is 3.5 million. So.
Chalo, something's right.
Not bad. Not
bad for a newbie. Next time I'll get it better.
Next time it'll be better. Good stuff. But thank you for being on the show, Batool. It was a pleasure having you.
Absolutely, it was great, and wishing everybody a great World Cup journey as well, and for Pakistani fans' sake, हमारा ज़हनी तवाज़ुन सही रहे.
And we have something big coming up later this week. So
India, yes, just a little game, just a little game on Sunday.
Yes. So we'll be back tomorrow night after the New Zealand-Bangladesh game, and we'll also be doing a big preview of the India-Pakistan game, which is on Saturday. So once again, Batool, thank you for being on the show.
No problem at all.
Stay tuned to the shiny side.